The year is 2015. K. Amarnath Radhakrishnan, an archaeologist from the Archaeological Survey of India, is posted in Tamil Nadu. While studying Sangam era text and ancient trade patterns near Madurai, he noticed something old. In a quiet village called Keeladi, farmers had been digging up unusual bricks and potteries for years. But no one took it seriously. Ramakrishnan wondered, what if this wasn't just coincidence? What if something big was buried here? So he launched a small excavation with the ASI, and within months, they hit gold. No, not actually gold. Something more powerful, evidence of lost urban civilization. They uncovered brick structures, signs of industry, a sophisticated drainage system, etched pottery with writing, and tools used for textile production. This wasn't a random site. This was a full fledged city. And it was dated to 580 BC, far earlier than expected for this region. Now, here's where things got uncomfortable. The discoveries weren't just archaeological, they were cultural. Because for decades, we were told that civilization began in the north and trickled down towards south. But Keeladi was telling a different story, that urban life existed in south at the same time as the north, maybe even earlier. And that's when the trouble began. In 2017, just as the work was gaining attention, Ramakrishnan was transferred. No official reason. Funding slowed. Excavations stalled. That's when Tamil Nadu State Department of Archaeology stepped in. They resumed work in 2018 and pushed it to phase 9. They also got carbon dating done at Madurai Kamraj University, confirming that 580 BC is the timeline. But since then, a silent conflict has lingered. The ASI claimed the site might be a few centuries before Ashoka, nothing more. But the TNSDA stood by their reports, backed by lab data. And recently, in 2025, the ASI asked Ramakrishnan to rewrite his 982 pages report, saying that it wasn't clear enough. I'm not here to pick sides, but if you're wondering, was there pressure? Did someone try to bury this discovery? Let's say you don't ask a 982 pages report to be rewritten if everything was smooth. Now back to what they found. This wasn't just pots and bone scattered in dirt. It was the blueprint of a city. Brick walls, not mud or stone. Fired bricks arranged in straight line. Some houses had multiple rooms, built with clear planning. Underground drainage system, pipeline, soak pits, water channels. Dozens of ring wells, indicating managed urban water use. Evidence of industry, dyeing tanks, spindle holes, loom weights. 18,000 plus artifacts, including etched pottery with markings, iron tools, bone tools, ivory dice, beads, bangles, earrings, and even gold coins. Game pieces proving that they had leisure time. Graffiti like symbols, possibly early writing. Some writings matched Tamil Brahmi. More on that later. Now, here's the most telling part: no palaces, no temples, no idols, no weapons. This wasn't a king's city, not a war zone, not a religious site. It was a working city, peaceful, organized, functional, built by people who valued structure, cleanliness, and trade. And all of it just 1.5 meters beneath our feet. But here is what most people miss. Keeladi didn't just give us bricks, it gave us clues. Clues that challenged the entire timeline of Indian history. Let's start with something sharp: iron tools. You have heard of Iron Age in India. Your textbook probably says that it began in Gangetic Plains and reached the south around 300 BC. But at Keeladi, they found arrowheads, knives, nails, sickles in layers dating to at least 580 BC, 2 centuries earlier than what we were taught. And at the nearby burial site at Konthagai, iron tools were placed under urns right next to the bones. That tells us something very powerful, that these tools weren't just used, they were respected, maybe passed down across generations, maybe symbols of a person's identity, profession, or their place in society. So, if people in Tamil Nadu were already using iron, building structured cities, managing water systems, and producing textile in the 6th century BC, why does our syllabus still call them prehistoric? Well, let's go deeper. They found a small blue bead. Looked ordinary, but lab tests confirmed that it was lapis lazuli. And that changes everything. Because lapis doesn't come from Tamil Nadu. It doesn't even come from anywhere nearby. The only ancient source of lapis was Batshakan in present-day Afghanistan. So how did it end up here? There are two possibilities. One, it came through ancient trade routes, like overland and sea, through ports like Muziris. We have made an entire documentary on Muziris, so after this video, you can check that out. Two, it came from an even older civilizational exchange, where such materials held value beyond trade, maybe for rituals, status, or even spiritual power. And if you really don't know much about lapis lazuli, we have made a video on Lothal, which was the biggest exporter of lapis lazuli to Mesopotamia and Egypt. So don't forget to check that out as well. And here's something else that rarely gets mentioned. Roman coins. Most were found in sites around Keeladi. Well, not directly in the earliest trench layers, but they prove one thing clearly, that this region stayed active for centuries. Even after Keeladi faded, the region evolved into a powerful hub of global trade, linking Rome, Egypt, Sri Lanka, and Southeast Asia. And now zoom out. What do you see? You don't see one city, you see a civilizational zone, one that lasted for almost 1,000 years, adapting, evolving, connecting worlds. And here's what no one's talking about. The archaeologist who submitted that 982 report, he was asked to rewrite it, not because it was wrong, not because it was fake, but it wasn't clear enough, whatever that means. You connect the dots, because truth, when inconvenient, often gets buried, just like this city once was. And Keeladi, it's not here to correct our history. It's here to complete it. Even Sinoli faced the same resistance. But this isn't about Sinoli. It's about Keeladi, a missing chapter, quietly waiting beneath the soil. And now we may have found the script. So here's where a lot of confusion comes in. And let's just clear it up. The markings found at Keeladi, they are interesting, yes, but not earth-shattering. What they are is expected. Because if Tamil Brahmi inscriptions have already been found at Algankulam and Mangulam, dated to 500 to 300 BC, then finding similar symbol at Keeladi in the layer from 580 BC, well, that just fits the timeline. It doesn't break it. In fact, it suggests that the early symbolic writing or proto-script was either already present or beginning to emerge in this region. And now, are these full Tamil Brahmi inscriptions? That's still being debated. Some graffiti markings do resemble known Tamil Brahmi letters, but scholars are cautious, and rightly so, because just seeing repeated marks doesn't confirm a script. They could be potter's marks, clan identifiers, or inventory tallies, or symbol of trade. They're still a form of literacy, but not the kind you'll call literature. So what does this actually mean for history? It means writing, or the foundation of it, was forming here around the same time the broader Sangam period began to take shape. And that's what's significant. Because we often imagine writing as something that comes from rulers or empires. But here, it might have come from the working class, traders, artisans, farmers, or the society itself. Not from top down, but from ground to up. And now, what mostly people ask, was this script local or did it come from the north? Was it a result of Brahmi influence or a parallel development? And the truth is, we don't need to answer that to appreciate what's right in front of us. Scripts evolve, sometimes in one place, sometimes in many. North India had Brahmi, South India had Tamil Brahmi. They might have merged side by side or from a shared cultural root. Keeladi doesn't disprove anything. It just adds one more critical piece to a much larger puzzle. And here's the core point. If Tamil Brahmi was in use by 500 BCE and Keeladi's urban layer date to 580 BCE, then this region was either using or developing writing at the same time as the Gangetic Plains. Not earlier, not later, but parallel. And that changes the map of how we understand literacy in ancient Bharat. Because civilization wasn't north to south. It was happening all at once in different form. Isn't that a more honest and more beautiful version of past? And now let's step deeper into the Sangam era. Because when we talk about the Sangam period, especially the first Sangam, we are talking about a lost city called then Madurai. The original Madurai is said to have been swallowed by the sea. For years, that was written off as mythology. But is it really that far-fetched? Because we know India's coastline has shifted over the last few thousand years. Land has gone under, rivers have changed courses. Entire settlements like Dwarka in the west and Pumpuhar in the east are now underwater. So why not then Madurai? We don't have the evidence yet, but we can't fully rule it out either. The Sangam text speaks of three literary assemblies held over thousands of years, attended by hundreds of poets, scholars, and kings. Only the third Sangam, 300 BC to 300 CE, has tangible proof. The first and second Sangams, more elusive. That's where Keeladi becomes important. Because Keeladi, dated to around 580 BCE, suddenly gives the Sangam legend a physical anchor. It shows that urban life, writing, trade, and social organization were already present here, long before we expected. And then comes the big question. If this was part of the Sangam era, where are the kings? Because the texts speak of grand courts, epic battles, and generous monarchs. But Keeladi, it shows no palaces, no royal seals, no thrones. It was just a well-planned, peaceful city. So how do we reconcile that? Well, let's be honest. The absence of royal evidence doesn't disprove the Sangam narrative, but it complicates it. And here are the few possibilities. Maybe the royal quarters haven't been found yet. Excavations are still limited. The palace could lie deeper or nearby. Maybe the Sangam texts are poetic memory, preserving the essence of a civilization but embellishing its character. Or maybe this is powerful. Keeladi was never about kings. Maybe it was the civil heart of the Sangam world, built by farmers, merchants, craftsmen, and poets, not rulers. So when people ask, is Keeladi proof of Sangam era? The answer is not fully, but it's the strongest link that we have found so far. It shows us the environment where such a civilization could have existed. Even if the crown hasn't been found yet, the culture is right here. And if we dismiss that just because we didn't find a golden throne, we are missing the whole point. Because civilizations aren't built by kings alone, they're built by people. And Keeladi is full of people's story. And now let me share what I really think. When I look at Keeladi, really look at it, I don't just see a Tamil site. I don't just see pottery or bricks or few symbols. I see a pattern that feels familiar. Because we have seen this before. Urban planning, drainage system, ring wells, beads, bone tools, no temples, no idols, no kings. Does that feel familiar? Keeladi's structured layout, drainage system, ring wells, and industrial tools. It all reminds us of Indus Valley civilization, or what we now call Sindhu Saraswati civilization. Now, Keeladi isn't a copy, it's not a sequel, but the similarities are hard to ignore. Both were peaceful, highly organized, craft driven urban centers. Both focused on water management, trade, and skilled labors, not on conquest. And both left behind writing systems we are still trying to decode. Here's where it gets interesting. The Indus Valley declined around 1900 BC. Keeladi emerged roughly 1,000 years later. What happened in between? Maybe Keeladi and similar sites are part of the missing puzzle, not a continuation, but a regional evolution that shares deeper roots. And that's the point. India didn't grow in a straight line from one river. It belonged to the north and the south. Civilizations rose in different zones, side by side, adapting and expanding. So, if the Indus Valley was once face of early Indian genius, Keeladi might be another. And if we keep debating which came first, we'll miss the fact that both existed and both matter. In my Saraswati video, I mentioned something archaeologists like Disha Aluwalia have said. We don't actually know how big our ancient civilization was. Not because there is no evidence, but because so much of it is buried beneath our towns and homes. Rakhigadi, Sinoli, and even those sites are stuck between modern structures. And in the south, it's no different. Keeladi was barely a few meters underground. So, for all the sites that we have found, there are still dozens that we haven't. Not because they don't exist, but because we have never been allowed to dig. That's what Keeladi reminds us. Not just how advanced we were, but how much is still hidden. Which brings us to something even older. Because when we read Sangam literature or explore the Vedas and Puranas, we start seeing a bigger picture. So these texts then don't just talk about gods or kings. They talk about places, movements, settlement, and now we are finding traces of those across the subcontinent. The riverbed, in farm fields, in remote hills, and sometimes closer than we expect. Just a few kilometers from Delhi, in the Aravalli Hills, there is another site that may completely change how we understand human history. Mangar Bani. The Archaeological Survey of India has found stone tools there dating back to 300,000 to 500,000 years. And if that is accurate, it challenges the out of Africa theory, which says that humans reached India around 70,000 BC. Because if humans lived in the Indian subcontinent half a million ago, then this wasn't just a destination. It was a starting point. I've personally tried to visit the site and I'm in touch with Sunil, the local activist who brought attention to Mangarbani. Right now, the ASI is still documenting the findings. But once they are done, I'll be there to bring you the full report. Because this isn't just about a site that was dug. It's about a question that's far bigger. What if the India is founder of the world civilization? That's why sites like Keeladi matter. They just don't fill the gap in our timeline. They force us to look deeper. So yes, some of the theories you have heard about lost cities, forgotten empires, even in civilization older than textbooks, might sound wild at first. But when the earth starts giving you answers, it's time to ask harder questions. Because from Keeladi to Mangarbani, from Sangam to Saraswati, one thing is becoming harder to ignore. India's past isn't just ancient, it's foundational. And the more we dig, the more we realize. It's not about rewriting history. It's about reading the parts that were left out. And this is it from my side. This is Harry signing off. Stay curious.